Boom, 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 baby. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you are having an amazing Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion. I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades. And I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, VFX, cartoons, and comics. This space that after 140 or so episodes, you ought to know by now. You know the drill. Hop into the comments. Say, hey, where you tuning in from so I can give you the shout out that I always love doing. But again, I want to thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time on this weekend here. Super Bowl weekend, as a matter of fact. So I hope your team is in it because mine isn't. So, but we're going to enjoy it anyway. Make sure that you hop on over into the Facebook group community, facebook.com/group/The Color of Motion. Get plugged in. Definitely don't want you to miss out on any great information, sharing a lot of industry news, having a lot of fun conversations, and just, again, all around fun. So make sure you get plugged in, facebook.com/group/The Color of Motion. Also, we love to have you follow us on Instagram, instagram.com/The Color of Motion. Definitely, like I said, still kind of playing around with live streaming onto the Instagram page. So look out for that coming in the next few weeks or so. As always, we are here every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, live to the YouTube channel, Facebook group, the website for the show, and LinkedIn as well. But I always encourage people to hop on over to the YouTube channel, get plugged in, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you'll get all the notifications of when we go live and when great content goes up on the channel. So please make sure you share, comment, like. That always helps the algorithm. And, you know, my goal is to grow the channel and the community as much as possible. For sure. Also, I'm going to try this. Make sure if you're not connected that you give eCam permission to interact with the broadcast. That way, when you do comment, I can see your picture and your name and give you a shout out. So ecam.com/connect will allow eCam to pull your profile and your name. So definitely make sure you do that as well. I am super excited about this show for sure. So I know you will be too. The swag store is open, so make sure you hop on over to the gift shop, pick you up something. We have a lot of great shirts, hoodies, mugs, always putting in new things into the store. So, you know, my goal, I want to see as many people with some Color of Motion swag as possible. My only request is, you know, that if you pick you up something, snap a picture of yourself, send it on over to me. That way I can share it on the show and share it in the social channels as well. So, like I said, super looking forward to this episode. You know, she's from Ohio, so, you know, I always love Buckeyes. You know, I'm a hometown person for sure. So definitely am looking forward to that. Let me hop back on over here for sure. Well, I think without further ado, we can kind of get this train on the tracks here and get rolling. What do you say? Huh? Yes, yes, yes. We are back and ready to get this show kicked off. Like I said, this season so far has been amazing. And today's episode is definitely no exception. So, looking forward to sitting down and having a fun conversation, like I said, with my next guest. And without further ado, she's originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Like I said, Buckeye, just down the road from where I'm from, but was raised in Virginia. She graduated from Full Sail University in 2013 with a bachelor's degree in 3D animation with an emphasis in visual effects. She got her start in the industry working in music videos and as a compositor, and eventually gravitated towards production, and is currently a VFX producer at Epic Games and works on the Fortnite team. So if you're a Fortnite fan, you're going to love this. She's in the process of setting up a summer program for underrepresented youths to head them towards careers in visual effects and production roles. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Miss Rabi Basir. Rabi! So nice to have you on. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this ever since we connected, and definitely excited. So, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Surviving here in Ohio.
Yeah. I don't miss it around this time, Ohio around this time, but like I said, I am a hometown Buckeye person, so I got family in Cleveland, so I love it. So that's why I was excited to meet you there. But like I said, I'm really looking forward to diving into your journey, how you kind of got into this space, and just talking about, just your thoughts on the industry. I always like to start, what was it that kind of got you interested in this space in the first place?
Honestly, it was my mother. My mother was she is rather a huge sci-fi fan.
Oh, okay.
And as a child, she dragged me to all types of movies all throughout Ohio. Um, and it was just as a child, watching her excitement for the genre and seeing how engulfed she was in it, and just the planning out. I remember when the Star Wars series first came out, and just her making plans to take us to see Return of the Jedi, and just watching that on the screen as a young child and seeing it unfold, all the technology, all the visual effects, not really knowing really knowing exactly what visual effects were at that time, but just knowing that they were doing things that seemed impossible in real life to achieve.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where my love of it came from. And, once you get bit by the entertainment bug, they say, it's an itch you have to scratch.
For sure. I think everybody loves seeing their kind of name on the, screen, and seeing all the work that they put into it, and knowing that they're a part of it, and really, help bring a vision to life, especially those ones that do really well, that people really love. So I'm sure it is a joy to see, like I said, your name up on the big screen, and know that, like I said, you had a little part of, and the small screen. I'm sure you do a lot of stuff for TV as well, and just knowing that you're a part of it, for sure. Miss Maggie, let's throw a little shout out here. We appreciate you stopping by as always, and being a loyal friend there. This must be let's see, Dr. Nasir Basir Bala. Hello,
Yes.
Rabi. All right, appreciate that. Appreciate you too. I hope I didn't butcher your name. I'm sorry. Mr. Bill Hudson, appreciate you tuning in, as always, for sure. So, getting, being exposed to all of this stuff, at what point, did you decide to, okay, this is the space I want to go to. I want to go to school for this, and really learn this. Or did you have ideas of doing something else for your life or as a profession?
Well, this actually is my second career. So I
Okay.
started off with a real strong background in finance. I used to be in finance and banking.
Oh,
So,
wow.
um,
That's a
so one
360.
day, I know, right? So one day I decided to just go back to school, and at the time there weren't many schools that offered degrees in animation and visual
Hmm.
effects of that nature. So um, I kind of knew what I wanted to do in regards to animation, but I didn't know exactly what route I was going to take to go and get involved in visual effects. So I can't say that I set out with this journey saying that I'm going to go out here and be the greatest compositor that ever lived, because I had no idea at the time. I just knew that I didn't want to be in banking anymore, and I didn't want to be in finance. And like you said, I wanted to see my name in lights in some regard. So I set out to find a school that could support my dream, and
Awesome.
came across Full Sail. And
Okay.
honestly, just the relationships and the people that I met during that time frame, they've been instrumental in helping me to cultivate my career to the point to where I am now. I mean, I'm
Well,
still friends with a lot of the people that I went to school with, and you know, my mentor. We've been friends for several years, and it's a very supportive community.
yeah, yeah. And I always tell people that was something I picked up on, pretty early on. Is it, even though it's a big industry, it's a small community, and people really, like I said, know each other, refer each other around the different places, have gone to school together or worked at other studios together. So it's really small in the sense of, like I said, everybody seems to kind of know everybody at some point along the way.
I
Um,
agree.
like I said, you went to Full Sail, which I kind of looked at too. What was, outside of your, the mentor and maybe the teachers, what was your experience going to that? Because now you're seeing a whole lot of online schools or schools that are cropping up online, Noman, Animation Mentor, things like that. Do you feel like for you going to, um, I guess, a brick and mortar school as opposed to doing it online was the best thing for you at the time?
I think for me, yes, because I don't think that unfortunately, everyone's not an online learner.
Yeah,
Some things, some nuances to this industry, you have to actually be engulfed in it to be, to be successful, and that requires rather for you to be hands on in some way. I had never been exposed to a lot of any 3D software programs at that point, so it was intricate for me to make sure that I had tutors and people that I could go to, and people right next to me that I could say, wow, I see what you're doing, how did you do that, can you show me how you executed that? And I think a lot of times when you're learning online, you of course miss out on that type of
yeah,
interaction with your peers and things of that nature. So it kind of promotes this separatism in a way where you're just working by yourself and kind of in a tunnel,
yeah,
which some people definitely do thrive like that. I think for me, I'm a little bit more social, so that would have been very restrictive for me. And I think that it definitely would have probably hindered me in my journey to get to visual effects.
yeah.
Because honestly, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to be in the field of animation. And one day I just happened to be in school at a lab, and I saw a compositor working on a breakdown shot for Benjamin Button.
Oh, wow.
And I
Yeah.
came, I saw it on his computer as it was unfolding. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! What is that called?" And he was like, "This is called compositing." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's what I want to be." So it just came together like in that moment. And I know that if I hadn't have had that opportunity to see him working on his reel, then I
Yeah.
would have never probably discovered it. I would have probably thought that maybe there was one track for me, which was trying to be an animator. And actually for me, I am terrible at animating. So it's a good thing that I found compositing.
Oh man, that's amazing. I love Benjamin Button. One of my most favorite movies for sure, and definitely because I always like watching the behind the scenes stuff. It's just you see all the hard work that goes into it and the effects that they put into it. I'm curious because I know a lot of people that I talk to, like animators or character designers or things like that. Really, it's all about the portfolio and your work. Do you feel like it's different for what you do that you had a degree, VFX producer, and getting a degree?
No, because honestly, at the end of the day, we had a teacher that used to say all the time that the what was it? The promise of a resume over the proof of a demo reel.
Yeah,
A resume, or in regards to your degree, your accolades, your credentials and things, they can only take you so far. This industry is built on the artistry and the execution of being able to actually perform the shot and, execute the work properly. So a demo reel is crucial in order to be able to judge the scope of what an artist is or is not able to do.
yeah,
So, I mean, I think that at some point your demo reel represents you more than your credentials do, because I've had the opportunity to work with some artists that didn't have the formal training. However, they, definitely had the talent to support it. And I mean, again, the talent is what people are paying you for. So, I mean, like that definitely supersedes the resume and the degree and the certificates and everything else at some point.
yeah, yeah. And like I said, it goes into what you said. It really does come down to the work. But do you feel like because like I said, I checked out Full Sail, and that's one of the more pricier animations, pricier schools to go to.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that's a thing that I guess some students get kind of caught up in, and also where online schools kind of fill that space where you may not get the in-person interaction, but the quality of the learning that you get. And again, like you said, you have to kind of decide what your personality is. Not everybody can learn things, online. They would much rather have that in-person thing. But obviously there's this, thing with students coming out, and it's not just the animation industry, it's just school as a whole coming out with debt and this
Mhm.
massive amount of school loans and things. Do you feel like that's why a lot of online schools have thrived because now, one, they're giving you quality training with a lot of most industry professionals are teaching there, um, but without the heavy debt that you come out with, say, 4-year college or more.
I think that each one has its benefits, to be honest with you. If you're able to absorb the same information online, then by all means go that route. But really, there's no circumventing the amount of money that it takes to support yourself as an artist. I mean, you of course are aware, the subscriptions for the licenses,
Yeah,
um, the computers that you have to have and the specs that you have to meet in order to be able to render out
and you're
properly and have
constantly
quality
updating.
work. Exactly. And then the constant supplies that you need in order to build your portfolio or to build out these assets and things of that nature to support your work. So
Yeah,
there's really no getting around it. I mean, like you might spend less money by taking a cheaper online class or whatnot if that's the route you choose to go, but you still need to invest in your quality software, your quality computer, things of that nature. you know um all the other things, the,
yeah,
the tablets, the 3D tablets, everything that you need to execute. So,
yeah.
I mean, the one thing I'll say about Full Sail is that they actually do include all those things in your tuition. So you don't have to purchase anything in addition to that.
Oh,
But I
okay.
think that it's just the presentation. I mean, like, whatever you need to support you learning this, because the one thing I would say is either route you go,
Yeah,
um, you're going to incur the debt successful in the program or not.
yeah,
So if you take a class online and you have to go that route and you find out that you're not a successful online learner and now you need to go on campus to learn whatever you need to get the support. Now you're in debt for the online classes that you didn't complete.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
either way it goes,
Yeah.
you're going to be, you're going to be in some form of
Some
something.
form.
Either way,
Yeah.
something's going to happen.
Yeah. And
So,
again, you have to figure out, who you are as a person. Some people are really self-motivated and can really, you know, dive in and get to the work, get their work done, and are really into it. Obviously, like I said, with kind of online schools, you don't have the kind of in-person kind of connection that you would have. So coming from kind of this totally different kind of space, what was kind of the biggest, your biggest challenge going into Full Sail and learning, compositing and visual effects and animation? For you, what was the kind of biggest thing that kind of just kind of caught you off guard?
I think the biggest thing was just being able or how many different programs it takes to support what you're doing. Originally, like when you're in finance and you're in that background, that in that space, you have, maybe you're probably proficient in possibly maybe Excel, QuickBooks, or
Yeah.
something, some sort of program along those lines to support that. When you become a compositor or you specialize in visual effects, I mean, you're utilizing, I'm proficient on roughly 28 different software programs simultaneously.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a constant effort in order to revitalize that knowledge, keep that going. The industry's forever changing and evolving. So roughly every 2 years or 2 to 3 years, I say I take a class in order to make sure that I stay current on things.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a new patch coming out or a new plugin or something new that you need to download and learn. And
Mhm.
now we all have the challenge of incorporating AI into our workflows.
Yeah.
So that's revamped everything in regards to the creative suite and for Adobe and things of
Yeah.
that nature. But I think that just learning the base programs and just knowing that it's constantly changing was one of the biggest challenges. And full very fast paced program. So, you have to be able to switch gears very quickly. Normally it's a new class that you're absorbing and taking in every single month. So
Wow.
every single month you're being exposed to a new program, a new workflow. And yes, they are building blocks. Every class builds upon the previous class. But again, it's like a train track. You're just building your set out,
Yeah.
and then by the end, hopefully you have a whole train track and you're moving like a smoking gun through it. So
and with that, which I think is good because with you talking about the pace of Full Sail, it really does kind of prepare you, to transition into the industry. But did you find like some people couldn't handle the pace or couldn't handle just the flow of, like you said, jumping from, and was that an immediate thing for you that it was, you were able to handle it? Or did it take you a minute to kind of, okay, get
oh
into the
yeah.
flow of your pace?
Yeah, it took me a minute to get into the flow of it. Because I came from I had been in finance for 10 years at that point. So it took me a minute to hit the ground running and to build up what I consider to be my tribe, which are the people that I utilize to support me in this endeavor. Knowing who you could go to for what, knowing the people that you could reach out to and you could count on in this program. Um, but yeah, it took me a little while. I mean, but you don't get long because again the clock is ticking, and then when the clock is ticking, the calculator's going as well. So you need to
Yeah.
hurry up. So
They're saying you
you
better
know,
get this because you're going to have to
yeah,
pay for it
exactly.
anyway.
So roughly by the third month in, you know whether or not it's for you. But I mean, you always are going to see in any college around the country, any program, there's always going to be someone that burns out.
Yeah.
It's going to be a light next to you that diminishes, and you'll just see that person kind of either leave campus or something to that sort. I mean, so the pace of it is one thing that people have to constantly adjust to, but then also, like I said, the what's being thrown at you, and it's always being thrown at you at Full Sail in like different mediums. you're sculpting, you're on canvas, you're on acrylic, you're on the computer, you're
Wow.
scripting, you're animating, you're compositing, you're in Houdini, you're in mocap suits. I mean, so
Yeah.
it's constantly something every single time. You just don't know what's going to be thrown at you next and how you need to respond and absorb to that. So
Wow.
as you go down the line, you'll see people that the next class will come along and they're like, "Oh, I just can't. I can't even deal with this. Like, I'm out of here." So
You just saying it is like, oh man, it's a
right. So I
lot.
mean, yeah, there were some people like they got to the mocap class and they're like, oh, we have to get in the suit, we have to animate. I just can't. I'm done with this. You're like, come on, we're like in month 10 now. Are you serious? So I mean, it's always gonna be something. It's always gonna
Yeah.
be something.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, I think a, an exciting thing. When new things are coming in and you're having to learn new things, I think you can, like I said, you can either look at it as an exciting thing that's just something new to learn, or like you said, look like you're overwhelmed looking at a tsunami coming at you. So, it's how you take it for sure. How quickly did you figure out that 3D animation and being an animator kind of wasn't your jam? You really enjoyed VFX and compositing a lot more.
Oh, definitely by the animation class. Definitely by
So
the
what
animation
was it
class.
about? What was it
So
about 3D that you didn't, that just didn't click with you? Because I was, well, I guess if you have to have a passion for it, that'll get you to stay in it, and you'll get better as you stay in it. But what was it about 3D that you said, "Nah, this isn't for me"? 3D animation.
well, I think it was for me that I knew the whole time that I wanted to work in visual effects. I
Okay.
just didn't know exactly what the career path was going to be called. I didn't know that person who does that work is considered a visual effects compositor. I didn't. That was the key that I was missing there. So I had to go through the program to kind of see. And Full Sail is really good about exposing you to different facets of the industry, so that you can see exactly where you'll thrive at. Some people thrive at being animators, some people thrive at gaming, some people thrive at film and television, so you get the full gambit of everything. Some people thrive at scripting, so they
Yeah.
become riggers and things of that nature. So and so I think it definitely exposes you to everything. And there were definitely other things that stood out for me that I did take to like water besides just compositing. I'm a good hard surface modeler.
Okay.
I do really well in lighting and things of that nature. But compositing was the thing that I loved the most out of it. But for animation, the thing that kind of made me realize that it wasn't for me was the fact that it felt like it was never done. Like every time you turned it in, it was like it could always use a few more in betweens.
Yeah.
You could always finesse it more. You could always tweak the spline a little bit more to make it a little bit smoother, or
Yeah.
add in a couple extra moves and whatnot. And for me, I'm just like, what do you mean it's not done? Like, are you serious? It's still not done? You could always do some more. I need to be able to feel like I'm progressing through something.
Yeah.
And when I'm working on a composite, I can see the progression through the shot. I'm
Yeah.
taking it from roto, match move, and, moving into my set extension, doing my background, incorporating my live action, you know what I mean? So when you go through all those steps, I'm pulling my keys, I'm taking out the green screen and all those things. So I'm seeing all these things. And then when I get to the point when I'm like adding in the atmospheric perspective and all this stuff, I'm like, wow, now it's coming together. Now it's a meal. It's not just a side dish. So,
This don't fill me up. This is all
right,
right there.
exactly.
Oh man, oh man. So there's never been a shot that you've done, sent it off, it's gone, and then you look back and say, "Oh man, maybe I could have added something here, or maybe I could have
Always.
did." Okay.
Always. Every season, every show I watched that I worked on, I always see something that we missed. I feel like it's something that we could have done, and I'll sit back and I'll look at it when it finally airs, especially if I'm working on television and the deadline is so tight that I'm
Yeah.
working up against the air date, and it finally airs, and I go, we could have finessed that a little bit more. Like, oh, I can't believe we didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Or we probably did catch it. Maybe it wasn't enough time to fix it or whatnot. So I
Yeah.
mean, it's like it's those little things. It's always going to be something else you feel like you could have added to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe the flames could have been a little bit more, little bit more flame,
Or
add a little
punch,
bit more
yeah,
sparkle
yeah.
to it.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of an artist. They always look at their work. It has to be
Yeah.
done, and you have to
Hmm.
move on to the next thing. But you always look at it and say, I could have did this and
Yeah.
change that kind of thing. Um,
I think about it like more like when you see dealers in Vegas and they're dealing at a table, and they finally, when the dealer says they're done, they take their hands and they go, "Oh, I'm done."
yeah,
So
yeah,
I step away from it and I'm just like, I can do no more. I've been in this 18 hours. I can't even see straight through it anymore. So let me get some other eyes on it. And I kind of tap out at some point. So I think we all do that. When
yeah,
I first started, I used to work through shots, and I remember spending honestly like 28 hours on a shot. I would have eye strain and all types of things going on. And I just learned that as now, especially as being a producer, you can't do that. You just,
yeah,
at some point, you have to step away from it and
yeah,
just
yeah,
like the
yeah.
dealer and just tap out. So
Yeah. Now, for all of those that may not know what a VFX producer does, you see these titles on the end credits, and you wonder what really goes into a producer, or co-producer. What does a VFX producer do on a day-to-day basis?
well, it's not as hands on as it is when you're an artist. So basically, you're driving the machine of your artist, handing out the assets, going over the scope of the work with them, scheduling time to make sure that the work's done in an appropriate amount of time, following the schedule, and then, of course, critiquing the work after it's done and kind of signing off on it. Um, so it's not as hands on, but you're still in the trenches with your artist because there's going to be things that they need to work through and feedback that they'll need in order to get to the final goal for this particular shot or asset or whatever that they're working on.
Yeah.
So basically, I just consider it like you're like the best motivational speaker that there is.
Yeah, best cheerleader, best motivator there,
Yeah.
for sure.
Right.
Well, do you feel like it's um, different post pandemic versus pre pandemic, to where you may have been, like I said, at a company as opposed to working remotely? What are the differences, the challenges that are uniquely different from both of those things?
That's actually a good question. I mean, I think this we've gotten to the point now where we're all so used to pre-pandemic that everyone has become so accustomed to working from home that I think that if I had to go into an office every day, I think I would have like huge amounts of social anxiety.
Yeah,
Because
I
I'm
think
like,
that's
oh my
everybody.
God,
They don't want to go into
right.
this.
I definitely don't miss driving into the office every day. So that's one thing. I think the biggest thing is just the interaction that you have with your team and the interaction you have with everyone else. Being able to see things as they're unfolding and knowing that you need to jump in and do something about it because it might not be going the way you need it to, versus having to communicate that out to your team. So you have to be a little bit more vigilant and a little bit more vocal pre-pandemic, especially when you're working from home,
Yeah,
because they don't have everyone's not is standing in a room and we're not all looking at it and going, "Did you see that? Like that's
yeah,
not working,"
yeah,
And you can do that when you're on set with people and say, like, "Hey, we're all compositors in this room, so we all see the problem with
yeah,
whatever we're looking at as we're going through it." Whereas now we're in private rooms and we're viewing things, and then we have to find a way to properly articulate that information out to everyone without diminishing whomever is working on it in the grand scheme of it as well, and saying like, hey, this isn't working, we need to maybe reel this back in or find another way to hit this shot or a different angle to do this, or just communicating that we're over schedule, or
yeah,
things of that nature. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that you definitely have to be a little bit more vigilant with your communication pre-pandemic because none of us are in the same rooms anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, do you miss that? I mean, you're in Cleveland. I'm pretty sure if you were, you know, working I'm not sure where Epic is. Where is
We're
Epic?
out of North Carolina.
North Carolina, which
Hmm.
isn't far. But is that something that you miss, or do you like I said, the ability to work at home and do your work from home?
I mean, I think that each company that I've had the opportunity to work at, remote, and then especially with Epic, they make their own effort to pull everyone in to incorporate you to give you more of that team feeling, even though we're all in separate areas. Um, I do sometimes miss the camaraderie of being in the office, but I don't miss traveling into the office. I don't miss traveling from the office.
Yeah.
And then juggling my other responsibilities, maybe with my family and things of that nature around my time of having to be in the office. So I think it gives you definitely a little bit more flexibility. However, it also gives you more accountability as well. And you have to be, a little bit more diligent in keeping with your schedule and making sure that you're engaging, making sure that you're available to have those Slack conversations, those Zoom calls, and things of that nature with people. But I mean, each one has its own drawbacks, So I want to say that I plan on relocating soon, so I hope
Oh,
to
okay.
be, on campus more, or maybe have the opportunity to go into the office and say, like we'll meet each other for lunch or something like that. But I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would ever want to go back to being full time in an office anymore. I think that would be the bee's knees.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think, like I said, I don't think anybody, very few, are once they've got a taste of working remotely, would want to go in an
Right.
office every day now. Um, do you miss, or do you even still um get the opportunity? I would guess not, being a producer. Do you miss being on the box compositing? Um,
Oh, I mean, I still composite from time to time. I make every now and then to keep up on my skills. I always, jump in to learn something new. Right now, I'm learning something new as well. So I mean, I'm always trying to make sure that I stay up on my skills, because you never know when you might have to jump in and finish a shot, or jump in and take over an asset, or even give more instruction to your artist. I think that if you don't continue to do that, and you continue to just kind of go the producer route or management route, then you're missing being able to connect with your artists. And so there's always going to be a disconnect when you're communicating things to them. If you, especially if you don't know what they're going through, or the difficulties that they're going to face in trying to achieve whatever goal you've put before them regarding whatever thing that they're working on. So,
yeah,
so I think it's important to make sure that you can always still connect and communicate with them, and know, and you can say, like, hey, I know this is going to be difficult for you, but I was thinking maybe you could, implement this, or add this emissive here, or, or maybe you could touch the lighting here, or things of that nature. You want to be able to still relate and be able to communicate that effectively. And I think the only way you can do that is to make sure that you yourself remain an artist. And of course, the love that you have for your artistry as well. Um, I love visual effects so much that I think that for me, I would feel completely separated, I think, from my artist if I just didn't do that.
yeah,
Like, I never want to be at the point where I'm so far removed from it that I can't understand what they're going through, or
yeah,
whatnot. So
yeah. So, VFX and compositing is kind of an all-inclusive thing. It's not like animating where there's a rigger or a modeler, then it goes to a rigger, then it goes to an animator. Is a VFX person handling like lighting and all of the stuff that goes involved with a composite shot, or is it kind of siloed like animation is moving down a pipeline?
no, we are the catch-all of everything. There's a term that we have called "fix it in post." It's the reason why, because everyone seems to think that, you know if they
I will
shot it
fix
in
it in
bad
post. Push
lighting,
it on
and
down the
yeah, we're
post.
just going yeah, we're just gonna fix it in post. Where her wig's not straight, we'll fix it in post. Don't even worry about it. Um, so we are the catch all of everything. If there's the lighting is bad and needs to be tweaked, then there's a compositor somewhere that's fixing some lighting. There's a compositor somewhere that's fixing some color, and grading, and just all types of things. So I mean, you just have to be well versed. I mean, it's honestly one of the most difficult disciplines in visual effects to have and maintain.
Yeah, yeah,
because you
composite.
were constantly wearing a ton of hats. You're wearing a ton
Yeah,
of hats.
yeah.
The only hat you're not wearing is editing, and sometimes you do have to do that.
So what was kind of the toughest shot for you? Can you kind of recall, like, it just took a lot to get the shot right?
um, hmm.
And what type of things do you enjoy compositing? I mean, you've worked with in music videos as a compositor, but it's a I think it's obviously a little different than a gaming place or even film compositing shots. What for TV and film? What was kind of the toughest shot that you sat down? You had to really scratch your head on how you were going to pull this off.
I would say when I worked on Orville, that was a challenge. It was a challenge. Only it was because of it being an all full space sci-fi type of show, and it's not really it's hard compositing anything that's not based in reality,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
because the parameters are just all over the place, you know.
yeah,
So I feel like that was a very challenging show to work on, because it was hard to communicate it to the artist exactly what was needed, and it was completely up to interpretation from the network and things of that nature. So you it was it's kind of it was difficult to envision sometimes where it was actually going.
yeah,
Um, and then, of course, each season of it was kind of maybe done by a different studio, so you're trying to keep up with that that look of that.
yeah,
But it's a different studio, it's a different artistic team, so it's just there's challenges in trying to line things up like that.
yeah.
So I think that for me that was one of the biggest challenges I recall having in this.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, still, still fun at the end of the day. Um, I think that the ones that I enjoy the most is when, because a lot of times when we're working on something in visual effects, we don't see the entire
Yeah.
scope. We don't see the entire show. We don't get all the shots. We
Yeah.
normally only get the shots that we actually are going to be working on and actually applying visual effects to. So once it actually airs and I can tell the shots that I worked on, but I don't know exactly what's going to be surrounding them, how it's going to be incorporated in the full series of whatever it is. So I remember watching Bridgerton, which I'm a huge fan of, and just looking at it and going like, seeing the shots that we worked on, like, oh my God, like seeing how they actually incorporated it in and what other shots they used around it to support the visual effects work that was done. And it's always a good feeling to just see it all come through at the end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So who is that? Because I always wondered that myself. You got, especially these big films, you got so many different studios, like you said, working on this, working on that, how they keep it unified so that it looks like one, complete film that just, you know, one company or team worked on. Um, does that come down to you, or does that come down to somebody above you that's seeing the whole thing, whereas you might be just working on the shots that you've got and are managing the team that you got? And how do you go about really making sure that it looks like one film?
normally it comes down to that particular show's showrunner to
Okay.
communicate to you exactly what the look and feel that they're going for in the shots they've given you. They'll communicate to you exactly what they feel like the desired end goal should be, and a lot of times they'll give you samples of whatever is coming from another studio sometimes, so that you can kind of see and gauge where you need to be at in this sweet spot so that everything kind of flows together. But I think that I've been doing this so long that when I see it after it's actually aired, I can tell the shots that we worked on as opposed to the shots that came from another studio.
Yeah.
And not just because I know which shots we actually worked on, but there's little things in regards to maybe the way something was executed. You can just see the difference in it. So that's the same as if we were all, if you and I were both working on a painting together,
Yeah.
and we both had the same colors, the same brushes and everything, and we both had, you know, the drawing all scoped out. My brush strokes are going to be different from your brush strokes. You
Yeah.
know, the pressure that I use in executing and things of that nature is all going to be different. So I would be able to probably look at it and go, oh, okay, I can see my strokes versus the strokes that you did, and
Yeah.
you know, things of that nature. So there's always going to be those little things, but inevitably it's up to the showrunner a lot of times to communicate to you the look and feel that they're, you know, that they're going for that particular shot.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that you're a little more, I won't use the word critical, but more observant when you watch movies and you're
All the time.
watching somebody else's visual effect and compositing? And what was one that stood out to you that you were like, wow, I wonder how they did that, or, you know, just what went involved in it?
So I would say this because my sister says a lot of times she hates to watch movies with me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
usually the case
because
with.
right,
You said
because
that one.
I look at everything. I look at everything different. I mean, I look at, you know, just the quality of the visual effects, the lighting, the hair, just everything that they've used. And I recently judged the visual effects for the Hollywood Professional Association this past year. So it's so funny when you get a chance to just look at nothing but the behind the scenes, and your goal is to break down every single shot. You're
Yeah,
like, oh my god, this is heaven, because this is what I want to do all day anyway. Um, the one movie for me that I always feels like holds up regardless of what is The Matrix Reloaded. I was just telling someone this the other day. It's like it's one of my favorites. I go back and I watch it every now and then to see if the visual effects kind of hold up for me. But I'm also a huge fan of wire work.
yeah,
So they have a lot of wire work in that movie as well.
yeah,
But just the execution at the end and knowing what they had available to them years ago, it always wows me that they were able to pull off what they did at that time in that moment in space of visual effects, and it still holds up here. It's been like, I'm not even sure, maybe 15 years now
yeah.
since it came out,
15, yeah, 20
and
years.
I feel
Yeah,
like it still holds up for me. Like I can,
yeah.
every time it comes on TV, I'm gonna probably watch it because it's like
You
yeah,
always, everybody always has that one that they'll watch over and over and over again because they just
yeah.
love it, for sure. You mentioned this a little earlier about AI, and you know that being kind of the big thing in this kind of industry and just all over. Um, how what do you think about it, and how have you, if at all, kind of utilized AI in what you're doing and as a VFX producer?
Um, I haven't had the opportunity to really incorporate it into my everyday workflow in regards to work.
Yeah,
But I thought it was interesting when it first came out, and everyone thought it was going to completely destroy the industry. And I looked at it as a tool that
yeah,
would actually be able to support a lot of the things that we were doing
yeah,
more so than anything. I remember when one company in particular, who will not be named, came out with de aging, and I looked at it. One of my friends sent it to me over the weekend because at the time I was at a studio that we, you know, primarily did. We did a lot of de aging, and I saw this and I was like, oh my god, they're doing it in like hours and in a day. The turnaround time was insane, but if you could incorporate that into your workflow, it doesn't necessarily have to like take away from work. It actually would be able to add on work, you would think, you know.
yeah,
So I think that it definitely has its place in the industry. I mean, it's here now.
yeah,
So to continue to kind of buck against the machine is kind of like, you know, yeah, like, you know, again, kind of like the Matrix. I mean, it's coming. So
yeah. Well, it is here, and like I said, that genie's not going back in the bottle. So I'm
exactly.
like you; it's a tool, and I think in the hands of an artist can figure out how to use it to make a task or a process a little easier that
Yeah.
way. Uh, get some comments in here. We're getting a lot of feedback. A little late jumping in, but always appreciate you there, Demille. Happy Saturday to you, and big congrats to you. Demille just signed his first contract, working on a project there. So super excited about that. Mr. John Marston, proud of you, Robbie. Appreciate that as well. Also, the meal, without a doubt, The Matrix was ahead of its time. It was revolutionary. Last film. You always love those ones that really kind of break the mold. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, The Matrix is like that. I think for me, Benjamin Button was like that, just in how they did their effects and
Mm-hmm.
did a lot of the kind of aging and de-aging with Brad Pitt was I thought was really well done considering. Pretty sure now with the technology, then that's a few years older, but I'm pretty sure now it just gets better and better. Um, was was there a shift for you from producing visual effects in film and TV? Now you're in games. Was there this kind of shift that you had to kind of get adjusted to, or was it an easy transition moving from film and TV and producing, doing VFX and producing on that space to now in games?
Definitely a shift because I mean each one is different. Working on shots versus working on assets is always going to be, it's a different beast, But I will say that my team personally is very, very supportive. So I've been given the leeway to be able to, absorb it at my own pace somewhat. But I think that it's always going to be a difference. I mean, but inevitably, you're still working with artists. You're still, providing, guidance and direction. So that's always going to be the key for any successful producer, to be able to communicate with your artists and to cultivate that talent and to make sure that it's properly nurtured and guided, the correct way. Um, but it's just there's subtle differences. You know, Fortnite is the number one game in the world,
Yeah,
and it's continuously it never stops. It's an engine, and it's wonderful to see it and to be a part of it. I don't think I've ever been a part of something that's been so well received.
yeah,
You know, my son is a avid player, and all of his friends are, and it's just crazy how when you walk into a room and you mention it, and the way kids look and they're like, "Did you say?" You're like, "Oh my God, I shouldn't have said it so loud." So
oh
I
man,
feel like it gets more of a reception than any of the other things I've ever worked on, because, historically being in post production, we don't get the huge red carpet rollout for us. We're
yeah,
behind the scenes people. So a lot of the times we're telling people that we've done something and no one really knows, that we did it. And if we did our job correctly, you probably will never even know that we did anything at all.
yeah,
So
no.
we don't get that. We're not the first people when we come in the door. Like when we walk the red carpet, people whisper, they go, "Who is that?" I mean,
Why are they here at
who
the
is
red
that
carpet?
person? Why are they so happy to be here? What did they do? So
Oh man, I can just picture it in my head. All the
unless you walk in with the talent, they don't know
yeah.
who you are. So,
Oh man, and even then they're like, I don't remember seeing them in the movie.
right, exactly. You rolled at the end of the credits. What did you
uh,
do? Right next to the
oh
food
man.
service. That was me. So,
Hey, like I said, everybody from the food service to the receptionist at the desk is involved with making the project and making the company wherever it is,
yes,
what
yes.
it is. And like I said, it's just amazing all the different people, not just the people, production people, but like you said, food service,
Yeah.
assistants, all that stuff are what goes into it, for sure.
I, I think people don't realize exactly how many roles are, divvied out for a full on scale production,
Yeah,
and how many dedicated people that it takes in order to keep it running.
yeah,
Something like you're saying, just from the food service person, that person being there every day and making sure that everyone gets meals provided to them, or the
yeah.
lighter who's on set that's
Or
there every
prop,
day,
or yeah, it's
right.
just
Or even when we were doing during the pandemic, the person who came out and administered the COVID test to everyone on a consistent basis and made sure we all had masks when we were on
yeah,
set. So I mean, like it's all those things that come into play. But it's always a nurturing environment. At least for me, it's been.
Yeah.
And just the ability to see other people and their passion play out in front of you. When I see artists or when I see actors and things of that nature, and just to see their passion for what they have, even though that's not my space. I mean, I never want to be on camera. I mean, for me, honestly, like this is big because I would much rather turn it off.
Oh man, and it's funny you said that. Like I said, you once you do something or watch somebody do something, you get a better appreciation. I had to shoot some uh, video, and it was just almost like an explainer video. But take after take or going through flubs, I came out with a much better appreciation for a director and a director of photography. Just having to shoot stuff, and people, like you said, don't kind of get. I mean, we see the end credits and we see all the flash and the glam, but there's a lot of actors and voiceover people that say, it's
Hmm.
not like you think. We're doing take after take. We're there all day, maybe
Yeah,
have to do 100 takes of this or 100 takes of that. So it is a very taxing thing, even though we don't think of us on looking at the outside on the outside doesn't see that and all that goes into
exactly.
it. So I have a much better appreciation for it for sure. Um, what are some of the major differences between you know the gaming, I mean, and live action? What's the one thing that, like I said, was the thing that stuck out when you moved from live action and compositing to, you know, doing producing for games?
I mean, the biggest thing, obviously, is that there's no on screen talent. There's no actors. There's no people. So you don't have that element that you need to try to control and to incorporate into and around your visual effects. The the When you're working in gaming, I mean, you're basically free, to cultivate and create the shot and the scope of it whatever way you envision, because you're not restricted by an environment, you're not restricted by talent, you're not restricted by lighting. You're creating the entire environment to which your characters or whatever it is, your asset that you're working on is working in, and you build around that. So if it's a character that needs to have this huge hammer that you're swinging, you built the arms to support this huge hammer, and you built the swing to go along with the hammer, and you add in the wind to sell all of this and whatnot. So I would say anything, it's a lot less restrictive than being in live action and being on set, or having to deal with making a set, making props, and then keying things out that aren't supposed to be there, and adding things in to replace things, and then fixing the lighting because that particular day you thought it was going to be sunny and it wasn't sunny,
Yeah.
or at some point you're shooting during the daytime but it really needs to be nighttime, so now we have to change day to night. So I mean, I feel like it gives you so much more leeway to be creative in that space, if anything. And I think it's amazing, honestly, because gaming's here to stay. It's not going
That's a
anywhere.
big
Um,
industry. People don't realize gaming is really big. It's a
it's
big
huge.
industry.
It's
Uh,
huge. Huge.
and so where you're at, you're more involved in the actual gameplay, or are you also involved with, because a lot of games they almost have like a mini movie before you drop into the game. Are you involved in that kind of aspect too, or are you involved, or is your role mainly inside the game and the gameplay, the characters in the gameplay?
Um, well, I'm not part of the cinematics team. That's what you're
Okay.
talking about, the
Yeah.
ones where they're doing the full on movie, things of that
Yeah.
nature. So, for me, I'm just part of the visual effects team that works on the basic visual effects that are in the game.
Inside the
So,
game. Inside the game. Have you, like you said, you mentioned you're versed in 20 or so apps out there. Um, have you, which I'm sure you have you dove into like Unreal and some of the things that, Unreal is being able to accomplish in gameplay now and films, just with what's being done with that.
Yes, I've been looking into Unreal long before I got into gaming. So, because it's now being utilized in film
Yeah,
and television for virtual production.
yeah,
So, my previous studios that I've worked at, we've done some virtual production projects that we've worked on and whatnot. So, I think that just to be able to have the knowledge and to be able to speak to exactly the scope of work that needs to be done and executed, you want to make sure that you're familiar with exactly how it was done to begin with. So, I've been looking into it and studying it now for, I want to say like at least probably 2 years or so before I even got into gaming. So being able to be at a company where, it was created, then it gives you so much more resources to be able to dive in more and to be able to absorb it more.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
mean, you're at the the epitome of where it's coming from. So
yeah, yeah. You're at the crux.
yeah,
I forgot Epic does build Unreal, so yeah.
yeah, that
And
would
like,
be us.
what was that now?
I said that would be us. That would be
Yes,
us.
yeah, yes, for sure. Like I said, Epic is. I mean, Unreal has gone so far beyond just gaming, like you said, in what filmmakers are using it for, and just real time feedback on virtual production, and it's unreal what Unreal can do. So, little pun there,
Yes, it
people.
is.
So forgive me for my pun. I'll get them in where I can there. Uh, Mr. John, proud of you, Robbie. Shelby, another one. Shine that light for sure. And like you said, a lot of people on kind of the backside of it don't get kind of the accolades or the big fanfare that the stars or directors or the core ones do, which is why I love doing this show, because it really digs behind there and really gets to the people that are actually kind of, you know, working in the trenches to get these things done, and out to the masses. Um, you mentioned this before. I mean, this is a very, it's kind of a high level position where you're doing, and being a black woman in this space. What has that kind of shown you, and kind of, you pulled away from just, you know, I don't know. There's probably not a plethora of, you know, black women visual effects producers. I'm sure there are a lot, but not more than, say others. But what has that kind of given you, and shown you, being a black woman in this industry, and particularly in this space that you're in now?
I would say that for the few of us that are out there in this industry, it's we try to make sure that we're very supportive of each other because we realize exactly what it takes to get to this level, and of course to be able to maintain at this level and to thrive. Because not everyone, of course, is going to be successful. Um, I think that it takes a village. So even though I might be the only female, I can honestly say that a lot of the support that I've received are from the men that are in this industry, and the ones especially that have taken the time to help to nurture my career along the way, and give me my flowers, as they say,
Yeah,
or give me a platform for me to be able to to thrive and to grow into the role that I have now. So it's not something that I would say that I've done it on my own, or um, or that you see me here at this moment that I only represent me myself.
yeah,
Um, so I definitely believe that it takes the strength of other people to lift you up so that you're able to go through, because there are a lot of tough days that you'll have. There are a lot of days where you will feel like you are the only one. Um, there's a lot of times I step into projects, and there might not be that many other people. I remember when I was, on the maps team or whatnot. And I think I was just the only one. So, so you'll go into companies and you'll realize that there's not that many.
Yeah.
My goal, of course, is to make sure that, going forward, that, I would like to see a lot more people of color in this industry, and
Yeah.
they, would be able to see that there's other avenues to which we're able to thrive in careers outside of the norm to what we, kind of push our children to go into.
Yeah.
Um, like I tell my son, he could definitely, go to school and play Fortnite if you wanted to, be a gamer, because that's
Yeah.
a viable career path
Yeah.
that we don't bother to, tell our children that they can do.
Yeah. I
Um,
know my mother wouldn't have looked at it. It looked at it good if I'd have told her I want to be a gamer. Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Well, my mother said the same thing. I remember when I jumped out the window, as I say, and left my very steady finance career to say that I was going to come into something that was unsure. And my family set me down to have what was
Intervention.
basically like an intervention to kind of say, like, hey, my sister was in the comments earlier, actually. She is a doctor. So, my family was like, hey, hold up a minute now. There's some strong career paths right out here that you can go into, and you'll get you a job immediately upon graduation. There's no
Oh
guessing it.
man.
And I remember my grandfather, he specifically said, we're not going to have any starving artists in this family. So, so
Oh man. Well, and that's the good thing about, like I said, what you're doing now. You're successful at what you do. Obviously, they see something different, and they have a different view of the life that you can have and can build for yourself in this industry. Um,
yeah,
is it?
now.
Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously, initially, they want to wrap you over the head, like, "What's wrong with you?" Because I've talked to a lot of, like I said, I've had a lot of artists and animators on, and I guess it goes, back to that thing, like you said, starving artists, and people think that you're gonna starve and this and that and that. They'll say they didn't realize that you could actually make a living doing this, doing the
That's
thing that
exactly
you
what my
love.
mother says. My mother says that exact same thing. She's like, at the time, she's like, I had no idea. I hear that often, though. I mean, like, I mentor, and a lot of times when I'm talking to my mentees' parents about the career path that they choose to go into, their parents go, well, can you actually make a living doing that? They've never heard of it. They never thought it would be something that their child would want to go into, or that they would be even remotely successful. So I think there's a lot of fear in
Yeah,
it, and then unfortunately a little level of ignorance, because you don't know, what's waiting behind the door for your child, or someone who tells you that I'm going to go off and I'm going to draw cartoons and I'm going to be famous. You're like, okay, hold up a minute now.
yeah. It sounds like my mom. And like I said, my mom was kind of like that. I mean, she was, a little older. I understand the generation she came from. While she didn't discourage, my passion and my talent for what I loved and said I wanted to do, she couldn't quite. Of course, she couldn't quite understand how you're going to how somebody would make a living doing this. And her thing,
Right.
just out of love, is saying, well, maybe you need to find something as a backup, or just get something else, 9 to 5. Do you feel like that's now, I almost want to say, a disservice to
Oh,
kids
definitely.
coming up? I mean, really going after your dream, even if it's you don't get to maybe the level that you're at. Would you rather be, doing what you love and maybe struggling a little, or would you rather be in a 6-figure job working finance, and you really don't want to, work that kind of job? Do you think
I
that's
would
the thing that
say,
kids are facing now when
hmm
they decide to go into this industry?
I mean, definitely, but that's the same with any industry.
Yeah,
I always say, like, especially for my children or the people, or my mentees, that don't go into it for the money. Go into it for what you love to do. The money will come,
yeah,
because if you're passionate about something and you're dedicated to it, people will see that. So the money will be there. But at the same token, I think that we definitely do ourselves a disservice by being limited in the scope of what we think is possible for someone else to achieve.
yeah,
A lot of times uh, people are very limited by what they've only seen someone else be able to do and execute. So if I surround myself, as example, with nothing but lawyers, then in my mind, when someone says they want to, be a, a tree climber or whatever. I'm like, well, hold up a minute now. I've only seen lawyers be successful out here, so,
Yeah.
well, don't you want to do this? So we limit ourselves by what we surround ourselves with. And unfortunately, in the African American community, we don't have a lot of gamers. We don't have a lot of visual effects producers. We don't have a lot of directors. We don't have a lot of VFX supervisors and editors and things of
Yeah.
that nature. Um, so we don't, a lot of times when people think producers, they automatically think that you're a music producer, you can be the next, Puff,
Puff
Sean
Daddy.
Diddy
Puff,
Combs or something
yeah.
like that.
Puff
Yeah. So
Daddy.
um I think that, again, it is a huge disservice. And it's also a bit daunting when you tell someone to make sure that you have a plan B. Because I've always, in my mind, I always said that I would not have a plan B, because that's a just in case plan A fails.
Yeah.
And who
Yeah.
puts all of their effort into something that they believe is going to fail, and then takes the time to have something else on the side just in case it does?
Yeah.
That's that doubt that you don't need. And I will say one thing, as a person who works in visual effects and that thrives in this industry, you have to almost have no doubt. You have to, every day just know that this is where you're supposed to be, the space that you're supposed to be in. And as my mentor would say, you know, you just have to, you have to just jump out there. You have to always believe in yourself, and that's one of the things I would say that I feel as though is added to my success in this, just
Yeah.
believing in myself. But
Yeah.
I mean, you do have those moments where you feel, like, is it going to happen? The down times. We just came out of that strike and whatnot, and a lot of people suffered in the industry because
Yeah.
of it. And a lot of people were unsure as to whether or not they wanted to continue in this industry. Some people have actually left the industry and they're not coming back because of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that we all have those moments, but you have to be able to find the strength to revitalize your passion at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and indeed, like you said, that's a hard thing to do, especially now when you got social media and people are kind of comparing, you know, a visual, like an animator will look at another animator shot and, kind of compare artists will look at other artists. Do you feel like that's a fine line to kind of walk as well? Because, like you said, obviously with social media's, depression and just people getting kind of off track has grown. But having that hard thing of using it to inspire you rather than um, kind of letting it drag you
Diminish you.
down. Yeah, diminish
Yep.
you or give you that doubt that your work is not gonna measure up like this person or that person, not knowing how long they've worked at their skill as well.
Right. I think that there is a fine line, like you said. I mean, you want to use it to kind of motivate you, and it should be healthy motivation. Healthy. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry. Healthy, just a healthy interaction. You, like when people post their work on ArtStation,
Yeah,
it should be like that healthy competition in a way.
yeah,
You use this person that you follow and subscribe to, and maybe they are somebody that you aspire to be like in regards to their work. So maybe it's motivational for you in some way. I think that anytime though you get to a point where you're comparing yourself, you're always gonna, comparison is the worst form of, worst thing that you can do to yourself, because you, like you said, you don't know the hours and countless hours and time that this person's put into this. You don't know the training that this person's had. Maybe they went to the best art school in the country. Maybe one of the best artists is their parent. Maybe they have
yeah,
access to someone who's helping them consistently every day. Maybe they have a tutor that comes to their home every day that's helping them to achieve this effect or whatever it is. You always do yourself a huge disservice when you start comparing yourself to someone else, because you literally don't know the walk that they're on, or the shoes that they have to fill, or things of that nature. But I think that there's nothing wrong with a healthy bit of competition, and
yeah,
that's actually what those pages, or those sites are supposed to give you. It gives you an outlet to be able to show your work, and then also to open it up to other artists that maybe have more industry experience, to give you a solid critique,
yeah,
for your work. And hopefully the critique doesn't diminish you, it revitalizes you in a way that you decide to go back and rework it and maybe look at it a different way and hit the work from a different perspective. So, you would hope that it would inspire you to get to the next level. I would hope
Yeah.
that everyone would have tough skin enough for that.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely have to have tough skin if you're not only in this industry but a lot of industries. If you're really wanting to grow, you're gonna get feedback, whether good or bad. Just learn to take the bad and build on it from this point. For everybody just joining in, we've been having an amazing conversation with my friend Rabi Basir, VFX producer with Fortnite or with Epic Games, working on the Fortnite game for sure. Mr. DeMille has a question. Let's throw this in here for that. What was the biggest challenge you faced when getting into the gaming industry, and how did you overcome it? Um, I don't know if it was easier, a little bit easier because you were coming from, working on, film and TV. I know, just speaking for DeMille, he's been working to get into he's a game character animator, and he's been working to get into the industry for a while. Finally, like I said, got a little bit of a break with doing some touch up work. But was it an easy kind of thing moving from where you were to getting into Epic in the gaming space?
Um, no, because I mean, again, we're not talking about. I mean, they're the number one, gaming
Epic,
company.
yeah, they are.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I wouldn't say it's easy. I would just say that I mean, anything worth having is something that you work hard for.
Yeah,
Um, so I would say maybe that was the only thing, but the hardest part of it, I think, was just assimilating into the flow of it. Because TV and film, they're at a different pace.
yeah,
You have a lull of when you're starting on a project, when you're working in television and film, there's a bit of a lull in the beginning. And in regards to being on this team, there is no lull. We hit the ground running really fast and really hard every single season. So
yeah,
it's there's no downtime. Whereas when you're working, like I said, in film and television, in the beginning you have to sit down and find out what the work is, and then you got to get the plates, and then you're waiting sometimes to get the plates because they're still shooting, and
yeah,
and then a lot of times you're just sitting around and you're like, okay, well, we haven't gotten the plates yet, or we got a few of the plates and we're still waiting for some of them, because you're creating everything from scratch each time. Well, not from scratch, but you're creating every single aspect of what you're doing in gaming. There's just no downtime. So
yeah.
I would say that's the biggest challenge. Maybe just getting used to the pace of it.
Yeah, yeah. Now for you, I mean, you have seems like you have a really confident, strong personality. Was that uh, a little hiccup just jumping into the pace of going into a gaming space? Or did you have that moment like when you initially got into it, like, okay, am I going to be able to keep up, or you didn't have those kind of thoughts or ideas of self doubt, or can I
Mhm.
do this work here?
I think that honestly, for every producer that deals with a new, anything new, stepping into a space of a virtual production project, dealing with a new director, there's always that bit of anxiety as to whether or not you're going to be able to deliver for whoever it is, whoever your
Yeah,
client is at the end of the day, you know. So, but I think that that can also be healthy because you never want to get to the point where you're so smooth that you just you don't properly prepare. You say I got this.
yeah,
Every day you're not trying to learn, you're not trying to be better, you're not trying to make less mistakes than you did the week before. um, I'm actually very critical of myself, so because I know how hard it is to get into these spaces. um, so I feel like for me it's always a blessing, but I also realize that I want to make sure that it leaves the door open for someone else like myself to be able to come along. I never want to make it so, you know, um, the door is shut for someone else that might want to come behind me.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that a lot of us, and when I say us, I mean a lot of African Americans think that when we're in spaces that not a lot of us are prevalent at.
Yeah.
So I think that you just always have to be mindful of that in every interaction that you have, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. No, it does. And definitely, is something that is needed. Before we do go any further, I want to give a big shout out to Robbie for winning a Peabody Award recently. So that was great news to hear. But you talked about really having that hand up to help people, and in your bio you talked about a summer program for the underrepresented. Do you feel like that's another big thing, being able to have the different programs, go into schools to really expose kids? Because I know it would have been a big thing for me had somebody from the industry. Like, I wanted to be a comic strip artist, so it would have been really cool to have a black comics, African American or black comic strip art or comic strip artist come in and just talk about the industry. And I know how inspiring that is to see somebody else. Do you feel like those are the things that are really going to drive the young people to really get involved, exposing them early that there is a career path that you can follow in this if you want to dedicate yourself to do it?
Definitely. I mean, I live by that. I mean, the fact that I feel like, because a lot of people, it depends on where you're at. Like I think that people that live out in California, they definitely are aware that of the career paths that are
Yeah,
available to people. But when you're in the Midwest, I'm in a predominantly I'm in a medical area, or
yeah,
an area where the medical field is huge here. So a lot of times, people just aren't aware that there are other things outside of that you could, that you can gear your children towards doing. But then also, the only way that these children are going to be successful is if they have, their parents and family and friends supporting them as well. So it's really more so a lot of education for them. A lot of these children, they're aware that they they can get sponsored for teams and whatnot and go off to be a gamer,
yeah,
or they're aware that they can go into these different fields and thrive or whatnot. The parents aren't aware. So because the parents aren't aware, they don't give them the motivation. They don't give them the push that they need, or they don't provide the funds, or they don't provide the financial support that they need in order to be able to thrive.
yeah,
So it's kind of an all encompassing thing. Yes, going into the schools and talking to kids about the possibilities is one thing, but a lot of times when I'm talking to my mentees, I spend a lot of time talking to their parents too,
yeah. That's
because
true.
I have to let their parents know, like, it's good that they can see me and say that they feel like I'm successful in my role, because I always tell anybody, you can, I'm not doing anything that anyone else isn't doing. The only difference is that I did believe in myself, but I also had a team of people that believed in me as well.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that that's, again, very important to making sure that anyone's successful. It's not just one person.
yeah,
That saying, of course, that it does take a village. It literally does. Even
yeah,
as an adult, it still takes a village.
yeah,
So
yeah. And definitely, I'm a big proponent of having those champions that really help you along. Because, like I said, while my mother was supportive of my passion, I had counselors, teachers that really helped and said, "Oh, hey, maybe you should look at this or check out this school, that school." So people that other people that really were around me that kind of helped encourage what it was I wanted to do, because it is easy to kind of get dissuaded into the thing that other people's live in other people's expectations of what your life should be. It's an easy thing to
exactly.
do, and an easy thing to get caught up, especially when it's family and friends in your ears, that type of thing. Are your Do your kids have illusions of getting into this space, or are they like, you know, that's just what mommy
Um,
does?
well, I think that my son, like I said, he's a gamer, so
Okay,
he's fully aware of the possibilities of where that can lead to for him. Both of my children are very artistic. My daughter, she aspires to be a fashion designer.
okay,
So
okay.
I think that for me, I don't want to present the hurdles that I felt like that I maybe had to jump over to, get the support that I needed.
Yeah.
So for me, and I hope that with each generation, not just my children, like other people's children as well, that we will be a little bit more tolerant of our children wanting to go into these spaces and give them the leeway to be creative and to, explore and to see what that is like for them. So, there's programs, like you said, popping up all over the place now to kind of support any and everything that you want to do in regards to being a designer or being a gamer or being a compositor or going into
Yeah.
visual effects or being an editor and whatnot. So, but yeah, my children are fully aware of all the aspects of everything that's out there for them. They
Yeah.
actually are in a program where they take, where they do screenplay. They deal with 3D printing, modeling, things of that nature, and it's good to get them in that, while they're this age, because they can be exposed to it. But I know that when I was in college, the kids that I saw that actually were very successful, they had been doing 3D modeling like in high school.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
were exposed to it ahead of time. So they had that advantage of being able to hit the ground running. Whereas, somebody like myself who had never seen a 3D program for real, everything was like from that moment on up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I'm the same way for sure. But when you talk to people that may not, you know kind of the background of what you do, or just everything that's entailed, especially young people, do you feel like they kind of get caught up in the, the hype of what they think it is, rather than what that work actually is when they get into doing it, as to why, like, actor or singer, or a kid that wants to act or sing may get caught up in the stardom of what they see others, the outwardly look, as opposed to just the traveling, the constant, you know, practicing, being in different cities, all the stuff that, you know, you, once you get into it, is, it's not the glitz and the glam that most people see. Do you think that, kids nowadays are maybe thinking that, or do you feel like, with the time that we live in now, they're fully aware of just, the work that goes into really doing this, or, animating or compositing, or, all the stuff that goes into making these big blockbuster movies that they sit at the movies and watch?
I mean, absolutely not. No one gets into it and says to themselves, I'm going to end up having to work 16-hour days. And I'm going to have to, sleep in a render room sometimes to make sure that my shots are rendered out properly.
You come
And
in the next morning and your
it's going to
renders
be
just
so
dead.
cold that I'm going to climb up underneath the desk and nestle myself next to a warm computer, because it's going to be the only warm thing in that entire room.
Oh
No
man.
one thinks about the countless hours that it's going to take. Everyone goes for the glitz and glamour. Everyone does, even myself. So when you start off in me, I think that's healthy in a way, though, too. We don't want to scare anyone off from being in the industry,
Yeah.
but at the same token, no one says that, hey, you're going to work in post, so you're going to be the absolute last person at the end of the line. And everyone who got more time to work on something, you're going to get less time the more time each one of those people get. And you're going to have to, there's going to be some days where you're going to, work 10, 16-hour days or even more. No
Yeah.
one says that in the beginning. So I think it's good to have that healthy, you know, dose of the unrealistic part of it, to think that that's what you'll have, because that'll be the thing that gets you through the days when it's
Yeah.
not that,
Yeah.
you
That
know.
is true. That is true. Um, Again, everybody just jumping on, or we're having a great conversation with VFX producer Rabi Basir. What's been, you've done a lot of stuff, seen a lot of things. What's been the best piece of advice somebody's given you?
um Give yourself some grace, you know. Don't be so hard on yourself. When you feel as though you're having a difficult time and Take a step back, find ways to to continue your, or to kind of continue your own creativity. A lot of times we need to find ways to replenish it within ourselves, because we're so close to the art, we're so close to the shots, we're so close to the industry. A lot of times you lose the simple nuances that drove you to get to this in the first place. So I think that a lot of times when we get away from that, we start to lose our love for being in this industry. So, give yourself some grace, but then also find ways to support yourself as an artist. I remember my most basic times were when I would go to the art museum, and just walk around, and sometimes go with my sketch pad and sit down in galleries and just sketch, and inspired by the things that were around me. And then now that I have children, I get a chance to look at the fascination that they have with being exposed to new things that they've never seen. And sometimes we're so jaded because we see it all the time that we don't appreciate the simple beauty in those things. So I would say, making sure that you're finding ways to continuously cultivate that fascination that first got you into this industry, but like I said, giving yourself some grace also, and knowing that you're always going to be learning. There's always going to be someone who's ahead of you. There's always a better artist that's ahead of you. One of our teachers in school used to always say that, she said to us on the first day, she said, I bet your family told you that you guys were great. She said, your family told you that you were the best or whatever, that you did this so great. She said, look around this room. She said, everyone's family told them the same thing. And she said, and right now you think that you're a hot stuff. That she said, there's a 16-year-old that's in a garage and he's doing everything. He's doing everything. And it's so true. It's so
It
true.
is.
You think that you're spearheading, you're doing something no one else is doing. There is a 13-year-old out there that is on your heels. He is on your heels. He is compositing. He is making his own stuff. He's making his own visual effects and his props in his house, and he's making stuff. You just never know what's coming down the pike. So give yourself enough grace to know that you're not always going to be on top. And if you ever feel like you're on top, humble yourself, because trust me, that feeling is not going to last long.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody's climbing up right behind you for sure.
Someone's coming.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what I got to do on that one. Drop a bomb, because that was a bomb nugget there for sure. And definitely something that resonated with me. I heard the same thing. Your mom, your parents, your family always thinks your stuff is hot stuff until you get out into the working world, and it's like,
Yeah,
wow, it's not really like that anymore.
it's
Oh
a
man,
humbling experience.
it is. It is, especially when, like I said, there's like you just said, a 12, 13-year old that's just killing it with the stuff that they do. And you're, like I said, just steadily trying to keep your head above water. I remember that happened. I was in an animation group, and there was he was like 14 or 15. He remodeled his room. He did a 3D model of his room, but he showed us the wireframe, and it was like every little thing was modeled. And I'm sitting here, what the hell am I doing in this group? Group. It's like kids now, they have this passion and dedication, and the time to really craft their skill and get so much better at what they want to do, for sure. And now, we're in this time where there's so many different softwares out there. You work for Epic, Unreal is free. You got Blender, you got all these tools. Computers are getting so much faster now. And, kids can sit down and create these worlds that they want to see, and they're the ones that usually wind up as directors and producers down the line. For
Yes, this
sure.
is true.
Oh man, I'll tell you, Mr. DeVille loves it. Great advice on giving yourself some grace. Yeah, that's a hard thing. Like I said, I struggle with that sometimes. Just giving myself the grace of just learning. But like you had mentioned a minute ago, getting back to this passion of what originally got you excited about it. And I felt like I think we all do at some point or another. There was this time where I just was kind of lost in, I was doing so much corporate stuff, even though it was, graphics and animation, it was this corporate thing. And it took me a minute, and especially one of the reasons why I started the show, another one of the reasons why I started the show, because it just brought me back to this passion of what I loved and what just got me fired up about art and creating and comics and cartoons. So always, find this passion space and like you said, give yourself grace to kind of, you know, step outside of yourself and find all these other things that'll hopefully inspire your art and your visual effects, your filming. Get out, like you said, to a museum, get out to a park, sit and watch people, observe, do these things that really, are used to inspire you for sure. Uh, like I said, and I think I told you before we got started, the time goes by quick. We're already at an hour and a half. So
Oh, wow.
I was
You
telling
tricked me. You
we
tricked
were
me.
talking beforehand and she was saying, how am I gonna film 45 minutes? And I was like, trust me, it goes by quick, and before you know it, it's an hour and a half, which it is for sure. And so I want to try and bring this train into the station here. Um, for you, like I said, you're enjoying now your time at Epic and working on Fortnite. What do you see or, you know, hope to be in the future, the things that you want to work on, what would love to do, that type of thing? I mean, like I said, right now, obviously, you're soaking in a lot of stuff working for the biggest gaming company out there. But I'm sure you think, you know, what are other things that you would like to do, projects that you would love to work on, type of thing?
Um, Honestly, I don't want to set myself up like that because if I don't want to put anything before me that might not come to play. So I'll just say this because I never know what's going to come down the pike. I never know what nuance to this industry is going to be, roll out in 6 months from now. So
Yeah,
I just kind of like to roll with it, and wherever I end up at, I feel like that's exactly where I'm supposed to be. Um, so as far as like, I mean, I've had the opportunity to work, like you said, on a lot of things. Just to be able to see my name rolling in credits on bigger projects, you know, eventually at some point that would be the epitome of everything for me. But I don't know what that's going to be. So
yeah,
I don't want to say because I don't know. I'm
yeah,
always excited. I want to keep my own excitement intact and being like that child that walked into the movie theater that didn't know what to expect.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to continuously be that child that doesn't know what to expect. So
Yeah, well, that's a good way to be, and you are definitely working on one of the biggest games right now and biggest companies right now, Epic and Fortnite. So, like I said, this is a great adventure for you. I'm so excited just to watch your journey and what you're doing, and like I said, I love a Buckeyes. I'm a hometown person, so I'm glad, so glad, and so thankful, Robbie. I can't thank you enough for coming on, sharing, your skill, your knowledge, your passion for what you do, and really helping to inspire others that may have been on or may watch this later. And again, one, I can't thank you enough for just connecting with me in the first place. I got a lot to learn, so I'm definitely soaking it all in, like all of you as well. Um, Make sure that you connect with Robbie on her IMDb profile. You can find it here. Connect with her. Like I said, she does some amazing stuff and has worked on some pretty amazing projects. And looking forward to definitely checking out this more. As we and all of this stuff will be in the show notes as well. So please make sure if you are just checking this out, hop on over to the show notes in the beginning of the week. All of this stuff will be in there, and you'll definitely be able to rewatch the episode because Robbie dropped a lot of nuggets in there that you definitely have to kind of take your time to go back through if you haven't already to pick up some stuff. So appreciate all of you for sure tuning in. Robbie, if you could hang out in the green room for just a second while I close this out, I definitely would appreciate it. But everybody, please, 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 please help me thank again my guest, a very special guest and friend, Rabi Basir, for coming on and just killing it, making season 4 a killer. So hold
Thank you
out
for
for
having
just a
me.
second there, Robbie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome. Guys and gals, this has been an amazing. And I could talk to her for so much longer, but again, definitely looking forward to having her back on the show, as always, for sure. But I could have talked to her for hours, but definitely appreciate you, the viewers, for sticking with me as always. Like I said, season 4 has been a train, just a runaway train. We've had so many great guests on the show. And continuing to do that for sure. I appreciate everybody that's, I always appreciate everybody gives me a little time from their weekend. Like I said, it's, you don't have to sit here and watch it. I try and make it an entertaining show for sure. Mr. Green, appreciate you stopping by and tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show for sure. Mr. Dewan, as always, appreciate that. I'm sure Robbie appreciates it as well. Mr. John, appreciate you coming by. Always like to give shouts out to everybody for sure. Miss Deborah, what up? What up? What up? What up? Deborah is the consummate Detroiter. I tell you, I love her. Appreciate you stopping by for sure, as always. Also appreciate the recommendation there for a possible guest. So thank you, Deborah, for supporting the show. She also has a great podcast with a lot of other great creators of color as well. Black woman animator. Definitely you should check it out for sure. So I'm all about spreading the love and really getting all this content out there. And in the same vein as today's episode with Robbie and being a visual effects person, you are definitely going to love next week's guest. I'm so looking forward to that as well. Mr. Rodolphe Pierre Lewis, founder and CEO of Action VFX. So if you are a VFX person, filmmaker, or just a content creator, I'm sure you are well aware of his company and the content that they put out. They put out a lot of visual effects clips and projects, pyrotechnics, just things that visual effects people use in their projects. So super looking forward to having Rodolphe come on the show and sit and talk about just VFX again. So looking forward to that. With that, like I said, I cannot thank all of you enough for, being a part of the show and as always, really supporting the show. So, thank you. Make sure you tune in next week because, like I said, this train is a runaway train, and all I can say is hang on. So, with that, have a great rest of the weekend. Have a great Super Bowl weekend. Enjoy. I hope, like I said, if your team is in it, they win. Mine's has been out, so I'm just watching. I just hope it's a good game. But again, like I said, thank you for tuning in. And with that, I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers, everybody.